All right, welcome everybody to the Phys Ed Summit
Phys Ed Summit
2017.
2017.
My name is Jorge
My name
Rodriguez,
is
and I'm
Jorge
going to be your
Rodriguez. I'm going to
moderator
be your
for this
moderator for this
presentation.
presentation.
So before
So
we get
before we
started,
get started,
I did want to go over a
I want to
few
go over a
technical
few
issues.
technical
If we have
issues.
any
If we
technical
have
issues, which I don't
any technical
anticipate,
issues,
but if we do,
if
and
we
for
do,
whatever
for
reason
whatever
the feed
reason the
stops,
feed
I'll
stops,
go ahead
I'll
and
go ahead and
put a new link to
put a new
the
link to
video
the
in the
video
toggle.
in
So
the
if you're on the
toggle. So
toggle,
if you're on
stay
the
on the
toggle,
toggle.
stay on the toggle.
So again, welcome
So
to
again,
the
welcome
Phys
to
Ed
the
Summit
Phys Ed Summit
2017. It's been an
2017.
awesome
It's been an
conference so
awesome
far, and
conference
we're
so
going to
far.
continue
We're going
that.
to continue
We'll
that.
keep that going.
Keep that
We have an
going.
awesome
We have an awesome
presentation by
presentation by
Amy Lauren Smith,
Amy Lauren Smith,
and she's going to be
and
talking about
she's going to be talking
upgrading
about
your
upgrading your
curriculum to meet the needs
meet the
of
needs
today's
of
teens. So
today's
Amy,
teens.
thank you
So
so much
Amy,
for
thank you so
joining
much
us.
for joining
Take it away. How are you?
Thanks for having me. It's really exciting to be back at Phys Ed Summit. This is my third one, and I just love the opportunity to get to connect with everybody all over the world. I watched a couple great sessions already, so that was exciting. I'm going to share a whole bunch of resources with you guys. So if at any point you've got questions or need anything in particular, or are looking to go in a certain direction, just hop that into the toggle, and I've given Jorge permission to interrupt me at any time. So let's go ahead and get started. And I'm trying to switch windows here to see if that would help. Okay, we got that on the screen there. Jorge, you there?
Yeah, sorry, I muted myself. Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, perfect. All right, so like I said, we're going to be talking about updating health curriculum to meet the needs of today's teens. On there is my Twitter handle, as well as the hashtag for health ed. I've seen that there were quite a few health ed people that were going to maybe be joining us today, so I'm super excited about that. We've got a good connection going on Twitter with people sharing ideas and resources. So hop on there if you are a health teacher or a phys ed teacher teaching health, because you'll get lots of great ideas. So a little bit about me. I am I'm from California, but I'm based at the Shanghai American School, which is in Shanghai, China. It's an international school. If you caught that great session at the beginning of the conference on teaching internationally, that's what I do. My students come from all over the world. You have to have a foreign passport to go to the school, so we teach entirely an American curriculum, and so I do teach with the National Health Ed Standards. My philosophy on health class and curriculum is that it needs to be current, because the information is changing so constantly. It needs to be relevant because each student population has different health needs, and it has to be adaptable because you never know what issues might pop up in the world, or more specifically with your students and the school population. So all my resources are available on my website, which is thehealthteacher.com. And on there, I've got sections for teachers. I'll be putting all the resources from today on there as well. I'll share with you a link that you can find the slideshow from today as well to go back. One of the reasons why I started blogging and sharing all my resources is that I started teaching at a high school, my old high school actually, in Southern California, and it was a large public high school. Are we still seeing the? There we go. Sorry, I lost you guys there for a second. And I didn't have a ton of resources, and I didn't have a lot of time to cultivate those resources. And I knew that the textbooks that had been there for 15 years weren't going to work. So I really spent a lot of time and kind of dug in and got the information that I needed from the kids. When I moved here overseas and started having a lot more resources available to me, I really felt obligated to try to document what we were doing and give back as much as possible to all my fellow teachers in places that still didn't have the kind of time and resources that I was gifted with when I came here. So on that, as I started blogging and writing, I connected with Choices magazine. So Scholastic has a life skills magazine for teens called Choices. If you have not yet subscribed or done anything with them, then I'd highly recommend getting on board, either getting the magazine for your classroom, which is really great, instead of textbooks. You know, it's a monthly magazine for the classroom, similar to how social studies classes use Upfront or the New York Times magazine for their classes. Choices is all health and life skills. And I started writing for them because I really loved the topics that they were choosing each week or each month. They were so relevant to the students and brand new. Here's a picture of the current issue, which is all about the teen sleep crisis, which I'm going to talk about more. And then I began, after about a year of writing a weekly column for them on ideas and projects for health teachers, I took over the teacher's guide. So I'm not sure if you've ever used a Scholastic magazine before, but typically it comes with a teacher's guide that often kind of gets thrown away. It's a lot of vocabulary exercises and things like that. It was like that in the past, but they shifted gears and had me come on board to add a lot of project-based learning and activities to the teacher's guide, and to really kind of make sure it's closely aligned with skills-based health ed. So it's a work in progress, and it's a lot of work, but I love doing it. And again, it just lets me share ideas on a broader scale. They also have a new website called the Choices Idea Book, which is specifically for teachers. So using ideas, or ideas for using choices in your classrooms. There's 3 links there that I'm a part of, and I'm going to share the idea book with you guys a little bit later. Choices, the original one, website is still up, and they are under the process with the advice of the Teacher Advisory Board of revamping the website. And so they'll be kind of really laying it out in a way that's a lot more clear for us to follow. It's already pretty clear, but they're going to really spend some time with that. There's a lot of great videos on there too, short videos, which, you know, with our kids' attention span, it's important to keep it short. So I want to take a second here and just ask what content has traditionally been taught in health ed. So I'd like you to take a minute to type some typical units and content strands into the Tozzle for me. Just take a second with that. I'm going to take a look at the Tozzle here to see. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead, and while you're doing that, I'm going to skip forward. I have so much to go through, so go ahead and keep popping that stuff in there. Typically, you know, we've been teaching a lot of content before the big shift to skills-based health, and obviously by state standards, we are tied to content. So in an international school, I have a little bit more leeway, but with skills-based health ed, there really are a lot of ways to work around that. So traditional content has been a lot of the alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, sexual health, very physical health-based, nutrition. And of course, the sex, drugs, and nutrition, as we sometimes call it in the health ed world, is still a very big part of health ed. But the needs of our students have shifted dramatically over the last several years. And I'm going to share this with you. It just came out last month. Oh, real quick before we go forward, all of the resources today can be found on that link. I put it in the Tozzle just below the chat. You'll see it's the link to the slideshow that I'm doing right now. All of my links will be live links, so you can click those resources, and then I'll also build them into the page so you can check those out as well. So in the September issue of The Atlantic, just this month, big story, you might have seen it online, it was passed around social media quite a bit. Have smartphones destroyed a generation? And this was a very interesting article. The thing that stood out to me the most was the byline, and as a health teacher, this should really catch your attention. More comfortable online than out partying, post-millennials are safer physically than adolescents have ever been, but they're on the brink of a mental health crisis. This is something that's so important for us to keep in mind. Technology has been amazing in all the things it can do, and I'm going to go over how to teach it with a balanced approach with the kids. But I also want you to remember that, hold on, I'm going to take off screen share here for a second. I think. Can you guys see me? Okay, great. It's also really important that we keep in mind that spending all our time on the physical health issues isn't necessarily hitting our kids where they're at. This article is very well researched. It's written by sociologists who've done massive studies of our kids, and the mental health issues, which I'm sure that we'll all agree with, need to be our big concern. I've done workshops all over, from SHAPE National Convention to South by Southwest here in Asia, and I always start my workshops with an activity where I have teachers, parents, whoever, admin, whoever I'm working with, identify the top 3 health concerns for their students. And they write each one on 3 separate Post-its, or if it's a bigger crowd, I use an online platform to make like a word cloud. And over the last 3 years, without a doubt, the #1 health concern, no matter where I'm at, is stress, followed by sleep, anxiety, and the big 3 that we still, of course, want to teach the kids about, sex, drugs, and nutrition, are outliers. They're not as big of a concern. And one thing we do know about those physical health risks is that they're unhealthy coping skills. So many of the things that we try to warn kids about in health ed in the past, they're unhealthy ways of dealing with stress. Some kids eat, some kids bully, some kids do alcohol or drugs. If we can flip the script and start our mental health, our preventative stress management and healthy coping skills curriculum from a younger age, then maybe we can help them protect themselves against those physical health risk factors. So I'm going to go over some ways to do that and to really kind of add this into your curriculum and keep it updated as you go. So let me go back to my screen share here. Share. All righty. And back to that. Okay, so here we go. And again, if you've got any questions or things throughout, just feel free to pop them in. So tips and resources for getting and keeping your health classes up to date. So all articles and resources shared will have a live link on the presentation. And I went ahead and put the word resource highlighted in yellow before the link, so you knew that that was a live link after it. And I put the link to this presentation, to the Google Slides right there on the Tozzle. So feel free to use any and all of this in your classes, with your department. If you are trying to convince your admin to go on board with the skills-based health ed, this is the way to go about it, is showing them the facts and the information, and then project ideas that can align with the standards. So again, I love sharing stuff. So if there's anything on here that you need more information about, please just email me and let me know. So let's get started. First tip, know your audience. Obviously, as health teachers, we understand the importance of this. Our curriculum needs to be relevant, but you need to figure out the concerns of your student population and prioritize on your content around that. So prioritize your content around what the concerns are of your population. We do want to use the youth risk behavior data, but within a district even, schools might have highly different health concerns. Also, it varies so drastically and quickly now with technology that sometimes concerns come up before they're able to get added to the survey. I learned this when I moved to my international middle school from my public high school in California. My lessons on teen pregnancy, would have been in the early 2000s, on teen pregnancy and drunk driving and marijuana were not going to be relevant to my students here in a high pressure prep school environment living abroad. They had very different health concerns. So the #1 way that I gauge health concerns is through journaling. I do journaling for several reasons. I've added a link there for a post I did for choices on 7 reasons to use journaling in your classroom. The #1 reason that I use it is because when I first started teaching health all those years ago, I taught at my old high school. I took over for the football coach, who was a very good football coach, but not necessarily super into teaching health. And he just had us go through textbooks and worksheets and all of that. And when I took over for him several years later, probably 10 years after I took the course from him, he handed me the box of textbooks and worksheets and the same super awkward videos that we had watched in his class and said, okay, just go through what you can and the kids just need this for graduation. And I thought, oh goodness, no. They need it for so many other reasons. So I started that first day with the journal topic. What are the biggest health concerns in your school community, or in our school community, in your family, and for you personally? And so with that, I then took their journals and read through and was able to kind of pull what I could out of the text to help support that. With the skills-based health ed standards, we do have freedom when it comes to that, and really focusing on our priority standards. And even, if your school is at a PLC model or looking at, curricular alignment, there's so many standards that my school, at least, we're looking at what are our priority standards. And for health, I'm able to base the priority standards on what those needs are. So I still use the journaling for that. And there's some other reasons I do as well. It really helps me get to know the kids. So if that link is there and it's live, if you'd like to find out some more about journaling. Class discussions. This is another big one. Obviously, a lot of us in health know that discussion-based learning is very important. One thing to do is to mix it up. Full class discussions are great because it gets everybody kind of listening to what's happening. But we all know that some kids kind of can dominate that, and with different subject areas or topic content, some kids are more comfortable than others. So I also like to do small group discussions. And I've found a lot of success with online platforms. So our school uses Schoology, which is our learning management system, and that has a great online discussion feature. And so I use that. I'll share some of the stuff the kids have done with that. They really open up. Great, especially if you use a online discussion board that works almost like social media, where they can like and comment on each other's discussions. I treat it almost like we do when we take online courses as adults, where you have to comment on at least 2 people's posts, but the conversations really happen organically with them when we're online. And so a successful tip, especially when you're trying to get kids to open up about technology and sleep, which they are very protective over their technology habits, get them to talk about other people first. Talking about issues with younger kids or parents first, especially when it comes to technology, will get teens to open up. So I'll kind of start the discussion sometimes in the article about kids and iPads and get their opinion on that. And they're very quick to say, well, when I was a kid, we didn't have iPads. And when you talk about their parents and kind of the hypocrisy around technology use, they'll open up quite a bit about how frustrating it can be to feel ignored, and how at the dinner table, it feels like nobody's talking to each other. And so instead of saying, you need to balance your technology habit, the discussion becomes, we all need to balance this, and removing the hypocrisy from that. Even myself as a teacher, setting goals that they're aware of, like, I will be at the door to greet you guys when you come in. I will not be checking my email, and they'll call me out on it if I'm not sticking to that. So really important to kind of realize we're all in this together in these discussions. So just an example of an online discussion. Just last week, my principal asked me to do to participate in a parent night they were doing for the first time with incoming 6th and 7th grade parents. And this was great because we got to get them right away with information about helping the kids stay balanced before the problems started. So they went through 3 different workshops. I'd highly recommend this. I know a lot of high schools do this, but doing it for middle school was really useful. They did one on technology and one with me on making healthy choices in middle school and how parents can support kids in making healthy choices. And so I asked my 8th graders, since they didn't have to do the parent night, and they're so wise, to weigh in on what they struggled with the most as a 6th grader and how their parents could have helped them. And then I was able to share this information at the parent night. And I was really surprised at how open the kids were because they weren't talking about themselves. So this was from an 8th grader. Technology was the area that I struggled most with. When I was a 6th grader, I would sleep really late thinking I was cool because I was staying up late gaming or texting all night. I think that a strategy for parents is to take technology out of the room when it's bedtime. Of course, he's an 8th grader, so he said, however, I think you should eventually give technology back as they grow older and explain to them why you shouldn't stay up all night. The 7th graders who saw this were like, who is that? We're going to kill him. But it really is a good point that the kids feel a little bit more free opening up, especially when it's anonymous. So that can be a useful tool to help you figure out where the concerns are as well.
Hey, Amy, we had a question. So you talked about Schoology. Are there other platforms that you use, like Google Docs or blogging?
Yeah, other platforms I would recommend would be like Today's Meet is a good one, and that's free. I've seen that one used with some success. Edmodo is another one, but I think schools have to have a subscription to that. You still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's a little bit of echo through your speakers, but yeah, another one that I know I use in my class is Seesaw, which is a digital portfolio, and it's free. And
Seesaw.
A really cool blogging platform too.
Oh, that's great. Seesaw. Okay, I'll put that in there as well in the resources. I'm going to try and combine screens here so it makes it a little bit easier when I'm sharing the screen share. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna hop back. Those were great suggestions. If anybody has other suggestions on that, please let me know. Okay. So let's see here. Oh, loading. All right. Another thing in knowing your audience is to stay current with events in the news and popular media. This is really important as a health teacher because these conversations come up a lot in class. So you need to read the news. That goes without saying. We all tend to be very passionate about health and stay on top of things. That's why we got into this field in the first place. But there's been a lot of cases coming up in the news, and there always is, that kids want to talk about and that are very relevant to what we're discussing in class. So there was the case with the girl getting convicted of prompting her boyfriend to commit suicide with the text messaging. You know, we want to always be careful in health ed of not teaching directly about suicide because we don't want to, you know, encourage any suicidal ideation. But if kids bring it up, it's important that you know what they're talking about. And then also just the impact of the fact that this was the first trial to involve text messaging like that as on such a grand scale. So, and then there was also the hazing death with Penn State. I think if you're teaching older teens, which we all should be. I really wish that it was more across the board with having health ed in 11th and 12th grade as we're getting the kids ready for college. Maybe stuff like this would happen less often and we wouldn't have so many tragic cases of alcohol poisoning and sexual assault. But those are things that pop up as well, and it's important to stay informed. Read young adult fiction. I am a big fan of doing that, and my students kind of recommend books to me. Watch popular TV shows. And be familiar with the media that teens are consuming. If you hear them keep mentioning certain songs or video games or whatever, just check out what it is, learn a little bit about it, and see whether or not it's appropriate for them, and maybe some discussion questions you can have with them. On that note, though, you also, here real quick, are 6 online resources for planning a health curriculum. So again, these links are live, and if you look, I'm pretty lucky when it comes to the thing with choices because I'm able to I'm forced really to document everything and keep it all in one place. So on here are 6 different web resources that I keep in my Twitter feed or that I follow to make sure that I'm keeping up to date. And so you can link on that. Next one, let's see here. Choices Idea Book. I am going to show you this real quick. This is another one that you can, like I said, it's new and it's specifically for using choices in the classroom, but you don't have to have choices to use a lot of these. I'm putting on here, you know, what students have to say about skills-based health ed, and I'll go over that in a little bit. Stuff that I learned from conferences, like maybe about creating trauma-informed schools. That's a really fascinating thing. Those of you who are in high needs schools should really check that out. Teen Sleep, we'll go over that lesson plan, why you should bring your teenage students out to play. The debate in Choices this month was on should teens have recess, which of course all of us health and PE folks would think absolutely. And so this was an activity I did with the kids after I had them read the debate and have the debate about it. They started piping in, and then one of them said, wait a second, why are we sitting inside researching the benefits of play? And so we came up with an activity where we'd go outside and they'd have to free play. And they ended up playing, I think, infection tag and cops and robbers. So it was a lot of fun. But there's that idea for that, and then the link to the article as well. So that can be a useful tool. But going back to that about checking the media and the TV shows and things the kids are consuming, always check with the experts first. So don't bring up or show clips of controversial shows without checking first if it's appropriate and having a discussion guide handy. There was a lot going around earlier this year with 13 Reasons Why, the TV show about teen suicide. And according to the School Psychologists Association, you know, and a lot of experts, it's really not something that teens should be watching without an adult present. So it's not something we as health teachers should be bringing up on our own. Again, that suicidal ideation piece. However, if the kids bring it up, we need to know how to talk to them about it in the right way. So on this link, I've put in there, you know, what we as health teachers can learn and why it's important for us to watch it. but then also a link to the recommendations from the American or the School Psychologist Association. And then also To the Bone, which was a recent show about eating disorders. I've included a viewing guide here from one of the eating disorder specialists that I admire the most, Dr. Lauren Mulheim, and that's a link, her viewing guide to that. So before you watch those, or before you have concerns about the kids talking about it, just kind of familiarize yourself with them. And when in doubt, Common Sense Media is an amazing resource. And if you're a parent, you really want to pay attention to this as well. There's a whole section for educators on Common Sense that has great digital citizenship resources. There's a section here on parent concerns. So screen time, if you look at that, you can see questions, how much screen time is okay. You can filter it based on how old your kids are. You know, is it okay to play Minecraft for hours, things like that. How do I make sure they're not wasting time on the computer? My 12-year-old is begging to see a PG-13 movie. Should I let her go? This is a great question to lead us into this, because the coolest thing about Common Sense Media, one of the coolest things, I just love this site so much, and parents really like this. At parent night, they were super excited to see it, is that you can search any book, movie, TV show, video game to see if it's age appropriate or not. So I'll search in, we were just talking about 13 Reasons Why, to see what they say. And this is Common Sense Media, if you're not familiar with it, is a nonprofit based out of Silicon Valley, and they are so up to date and current. So what they're saying here is that the experts say age 16 plus. And the parents that they've gotten reviews from say 15 plus, and the kids they've gotten reviews from say 14 plus. Now, here's what parents need to know. And here's what the story. So if you don't have time to watch it and you just want to quickly find out what it's about, you look at this. Is it any good? And then talk to your kids about, here's the discussion questions for families. So if your parent community is talking about these things, and you can share this with them. If you're concerned about a movie that's PG-13, this will tell you the actual age, because it's so broad between PG-13 and R. And so as a teacher too, if I'm going to show something in class, then I want to make sure that it's really appropriate for the kids. So I know that our 6th grade science teachers showed Hidden Figures. So I would look at that and see, okay, is this going to be appropriate to show in class? Okay, Common Sense experts, age 10 plus, certified, great for families. Here's all the positive messages. There's very little sexual reference, no consumerism, discussion questions. So this is a really, really good resource. I share this a lot with the kids when it comes to video games. When they're looking at these games that they think, well, everybody else is playing it. Well, yeah, but you should be 17. But then parents here are saying 12 and kids are saying 11. So that's a good discussion about that as well. It's extremely violent. So again, Common Sense Media, great resource. Keep what's working and don't be afraid to ditch what's not. This is my second tip. This is hard sometimes as teachers. We get really tied to things that have worked for us in the past, or the really, really expensive stuff we got from Health Ed Co, or the DVDs we spent almost $300 for. Well, it's okay, because now we have the internet, as one of my students said when she was helping me clean out my classroom last year. She said, why'd you keep all this stuff? Like the model of the diseased lung. And I said, well, it cost a ton of money. And she goes, well, now you're lucky, the internet's free. And she's right, a 6-second vine of a disease, an actual diseased lung, is a lot more likely to catch the attention of the kids than a plastic model of one. Our kids are very into things that are authentic and real. And so the old school methods might not work as much. So don't be afraid to ditch it if you need to. Keep what's working though. Use similar project ideas, but tweak the content in the final product. I still use projects that I did with my high school students in California, only now instead of advocating about drunk driving, my kids are advocating about balanced technology use. And the final product can be tweaked. I always keep a list up in my classroom of possible ways that you can demonstrate your project. You can make an art project, you can do a presentation, you can create a social media campaign. There's so many different ways that they can demonstrate their learning. And another way to do that is also with voice and choice. So whether on individual or group projects, or even as a whole class. And then here's a link to more information about kind of keeping things and throwing things away. As a whole class, my students a few years ago, 7th graders, we used to do a big anti-tobacco unit in 7th grade, which I know my students in 7th grade aren't in immediate danger of starting to smoke. In fact, I'm pretty sure that none of my students, well, 85% of my students won't, but they have a lot of family members, and living here in China, a huge part of the population smokes. We do still talk about it, and it's part of our advocacy, and some kids, especially those whose parents smoke, choose to focus on tobacco for their advocacy project, but they can get the information about all the dangerous chemicals in smoke and things like that when they look online. Again, with the health literacy and skills-based health, I want to teach them to access the information they need to deal with the health challenges that they are facing. But one common health challenge that all the kids were immediately facing in my 7th grade class was sleep and sleep deprivation. So that was immediately impacting them all, whereas the tobacco issue was immediately impacting a few, and as far as personally taking up smoking would not be impacting them for very many years. So they would kind of tune out like this. I don't need this information now, but the sleep stuff they need, and they need it now. So we decided to instead focus on sleep. And this project has changed every semester. They did posters one time, and they did songs once. This last semester we did, they wanted to do Instagram posts, and they found this great, we use Canva a lot, which is a really useful tool for creating posters and infographics and things like that. And they found a function on there for social media. And so they created their own posts. And here's the instructions for that project, as well as the worksheet that you can do because it all goes along with the cover story this month too. So I typed it all up in there. But the kids did a great job with creating these, and then they put them all into a canvas and made like a collage to advocate for their classmates. And so we have these canvases, each class, so we have 4 7th grade health classes, each class made one, and you can see their personalities come through in it, and it was really fun. They each had to focus on the aspect of sleep that they felt resonated with them the most. So another resource here to bring authentic learning to your health class. There's some ideas. Here's one of my students at the grocery store. We go across the street when we're talking about food and the influence of our food choices, and really look at food placement and the cartoon characters and things on cereal boxes. We try and get out into the community whenever possible and really make the learning come to life for them. It's so important at this age. Well, at any age, really. I like that too. So again, make the switch to skills-based health ed. Deanna did a great presentation last night, my time, this morning, your time, on that. And I really enjoyed it. I think that most of us on here understand what skills-based health ed is and why it's so important. It takes on a heightened importance in health education to those skills, because we don't know what health concerns the kids will be facing as they go down the line. Here's some pictures of my students' nutrition project last year. We start with figuring out, what the food guidelines. We research dietary guidelines around the world because we're a multicultural school. They then figure out which ones they like, and those are those Post-its they think are the most important. Then they each focus on one. So this group had bats, and it says, get the best, leave the rest. And then they figure out a way to teach it to our 2nd graders in an interactive way. So here are 2 of the 7th graders doing that. So through the process, they're accessing valid information. They're advocating to the community. And so it's a way to get the traditional content in, but in a different way. So I'm going to actually show you this link here. Oh, I guess I can't. The students with the skills-based health, that if you check out that link, you'll see some great feedback from my kiddos on why they like skills-based health ed and how it works for them. I'm actually going to switch to that in just a second. But while I'm doing that, obviously the seminal texts in skills-based health coming from Mary Connolly, skills-based health education, and Holly and Sarah, the essentials of teaching health education. And all 3 of these ladies are role models of mine and just inspirational, and connect with them on Twitter and follow them and attend any workshops of theirs that you can, because I've learned so much from them over the years. So I'm going to actually show you the, here we go. Sarah was doing some research on the, the actual the proof that skills-based health ed works. And so she was interviewing teachers, and I said, you know what, why don't I ask the kids? Because my students, we switched to standards-based grading a few years ago. So my students have had skills-based health ed for several years now. So I was able to ask some of my former students what they had to say about skills-based health ed. And I was really impressed with their feedback on that. So one of them, the old version is like, you get the scenario, they tell you what to do. Now it's opposite from before, where the scenarios are varied, you don't know what's going to come, and you have these ways to think critically, which is how it happens in real life. And this one I just love. The benefits of skills-based health ed is that it can be applied in different areas of learning in life, not just health class. So she used the decision-making skills for a social studies project, but also, and this is key, health concerns are constantly changing and everybody is unique. So content-based learning may not be applicable in a few years, and it may not be applicable to everyone. On the other hand, skills-based learning can help everyone in any situation. And this is from an 8th grader. So it's really exciting to see the kids kind of grasping onto that and understanding how that works and why it's important. You know, when they go away to college, for example, or even in high school, a friend might have a struggle with an eating disorder and they want to learn how to help. They might have a family member come down with an illness and they want to learn how to support them. Again, they might have a father that smokes cigarettes and they want to know how to help him quit. They're going to go online for that information. Our job as health teachers now is to give them the health literacy skills so they know where to go and they know how to evaluate it, and then they know how to communicate to advocate to the people in their life about making healthy choices, and they know how to advocate for themselves when it comes to making healthy choices as well. So that's so important because, again, I wouldn't have known 15 years ago that cyberbullying would have been a thing. If people would have told me someday your students will have a computer in their hand and they will use it to not be so nice to each other. They'll use it for good stuff too, but sometimes they'll be not so nice to each other. I would have thought you were crazy. So it's really important that we stay adaptable and we focus on the skills. Oh, and this is a big one. Stay positive. Focus on actionable things students can do to improve health and happiness, not on scare tactics and fear. The old model of health, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. Now, instead of don't be a bully, it's be a hero. Instead of don't eat fast food, it's eat more vegetables. Instead of don't do drugs, it's don't you have something better to do? You know, teaching kids to follow their passions. Again, once they know their identity and their passions, they're a lot less likely to fall into those risk behaviors. So the focus of our program is positive prevention, which is, again, all the things that we should do rather than focusing on the things that we shouldn't. One way that we do that, and there's a link to here on here for an article I wrote about that, and the Happy movie. Now, I don't ever actually advocate for showing full-length movies in class. You know, long gone are the days of Supersize Me. It's wasting 2 hours so the kids go, yeah, I get it, fast food is bad. But this is a different situation. The Happy movie is a documentary on positive psychology and the actionable things that we can do, the scientifically proven things that we can do to make ourselves happy. And it's an hour and 15 minutes long. And it is worth every minute. We just watched it this week with my kids and doing the online discussion afterwards. And one of my 8th graders who's really struggled with kind of behavioral things in 7th and 6th grade had this to say about the movie. There was different sections and I had them talk about what section resonated with them the most. And he said, the middle school resonated with me the most because sometimes when I try to make a joke, I don't consider others' feelings. In that chapter, this person was called gay and a nerd at school. He always would go home and cry for no reason. After watching that, I know how bad some people feel when I make a joke about them. I think next time before I make a joke, I need to think about what others might feel. And then 8 of his classmates liked his answer on that. And I thought that was really powerful. You know, there's different sections in the movie about, you know, Okinawa and what makes them live so long and all the different things that they're doing for that and how compassion leads to happiness. And there was just one chapter about middle school and obviously showing that to teenagers can resonate with them quite a bit. In the movie and in the field of positive psychology, which is the study of what makes life meaningful, there are scientific practices that increase happiness. And on here, I've put a link to a post I did with how to incorporate those in the health class and the actual things that you can do during class. So mindfulness and meditation. I start every class. I've always done journaling. We still do that every other class at the beginning. I put a topic on the board, but they're also able to write about something that's on their mind. You know, they can always do free choice. But over the last 4 years, we started alternating with the guided meditation. and we use a Smiling Mind program. These links are all in here in this article for you guys. But that's been an amazing, one of the best changes to my health class I could ever, it's better than I ever imagined, and just getting the kids settled and me as well. I just absolutely love it. And it's a great coping skill that they can use. These are all coping skills that they can use, healthy coping skills. Being with family and friends, play, and experiencing flow. So a lot in the movie about the benefits of physical activity on making us happy. So this is a great film to show, documentary to show. Even you break it up by chapter if you're doing a phys ed health split, so you don't have the kids sitting down for too long. Random acts of kindness. So after watching the movie, some of the kids said, hey, we should do random acts of kindness. So tomorrow, Monday, we're actually scratching or pushing back what we were going to do tomorrow and focusing on that. They're planning on doing a big Post-it display on the window behind me. So I'm excited to see how that turns out. Gratitude lists. This is huge as well. In the journal, the kids once a week write down 5 things they're grateful for. In the film, and in positive psychology, they did a study of university students and found that students who just one time a week wrote down 5 things they're grateful for had marked increases in happiness. One of my students was like, that's like the fastest happiness hack ever. And he's right, it really works. And I love reading the gratitude list, because sometimes it's big stuff like grateful for the roof over my head and water and mom and dad. And sometimes it's Wi-Fi, which I mean, I think we're all pretty grateful for, or just awesome stuff and cake. So their middle schoolers are grateful for all sorts of stuff, but no judgment there. And I always tell them that. And then giving back to the community. So just kind of finding ways that we can do that. Tip number 5, always think about the influence of technology. Standard 2 is a huge part of my program, and it should be a part of everyone's program, analyzing the influence. We really spend a lot of time in my school focusing on the influence of technology on personal and family health. We are a one-to-one school, which means all of the students have their own laptop from grade 6 on. So when I first started here was the same year that they went one-to-one. And I noticed that a lot of the health concerns that were popping up in the kids' journals and through our discussions were centered around technology. And so I really started focusing on that. That's how I began blogging and writing and presenting, because I was really kind of focused on teaching kids about technology balance and the influence of technology and sleep. And we now need to not think of it as a standalone issue. We don't necessarily, we still have a technology balance unit in 8th grade, but it's a big part of every unit. And just because it's such an integral part of our lives. You know, you can certainly survive without technology, but it'd be very difficult to thrive. There was a study that came out in 2011 where I think it was, I'm going to do a health teacher thing and make up a statistic here. I think it was something like 56% of 16 to 22-year-olds said they would rather give up their sense of smell than their favorite technology. And, the kids and I were like, that's crazy. But then one of them said, what would you do? And I said, well, I would, obviously, I want to smell, I want to taste, I want to do all that. And then he goes, well, where are you going to work? How are you going to talk to your parents? And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. So we don't need technology to survive, but we certainly need it to thrive. Hopefully we will not have to decide between it and our sense of smell anytime soon, though. Some ways that you can analyze the influence, some projects that you can use. So model a balanced approach and always start positive. So rather than, again, with those fear-based tactics, I always start with positives, how kids are using technology to do amazing things. So when I'm teaching advocacy, I usually show examples of kids using social media to make big change, to advocate for change. One of the top values for teenagers today, whether we agree with it or not, is fame. And they're looking for those likes. And if you can show examples of kids getting likes for being positive and doing awesome things and advocating, that can have a huge impact on your students. And that's the kind of stuff that sticks with that. So I always start with the positive. And then there's some different angles to look at. So here's some different articles and links here as well. So Heartbreak Teenagers and Heartbreak in the Age of Technology. I was curious about that when I had a friend going through a breakup, and she was having a hard time pulling away from the social media feed of her ex, and she kept looking at it. It was not good for her mental and emotional health. And I thought, wow, she's an adult with fully formed impulse control. How is this impacting our teenagers. I cannot imagine being 16 and trying to get over your first love when you have to see them on Instagram all the time. So I asked my students kind of how it impacts them, and this is some of their feedback on that. How to deal with teenage trolls. This is a lesson plan and activity that we did with our students. We had some issues last year with really negative language. The kids were kind of emulating some of the things they were hearing on YouTube. And we were going to do a activity on culture of kindness, which is included in here. It's along with the article, Would You Stand Up to Hate from Choices? It was a few months ago. So this is something we did in the spring. And so since the kids were spreading around negative memes, we decided to actually have them create positive memes. And I love this Office Space one. Yeah, if people could just stop cyberbullying, that'd be great. But they all came up with really cute ones and plastered them around the school. And so they were kind of trolling each other with kindness. And that was a nice way to flip the script. Whenever I can flip the script on negative behavior, I always try to. Teaching teens balanced video game use, how to balance their own video game use. This is a big issue at my school, and knowing your student population, again, in schools where you have students who are in a more high pressure academic environment, video game use, internet misuse disorder become bigger issues. Kids who are in areas of higher needs have bigger issues with alcohol, drugs. You know, of course, we've got struggles with the opioid epidemic and all of that. In my community, this is one of the biggest health concerns. And what I found was showing them first and showing their parents this as well at the parent night the other night about this clip and studies showing that up to an hour a day of video games can be beneficial to kids' mental and emotional health. And so here's a discussion that goes along with that, and a great TED Talk. This is an amazing TED Talk about how video games can actually, and a video game Super Better, if you've heard about that before, that can help people improve their health in the real world by playing this game. And she talks specifically about physical, mental, emotional, and social resilience. So the kids get a lot out of this TED Talk. And then they're able to kind of balance it on their own when they see, okay, it's not all evil, and they can share that with their parents. It's not an all or nothing situation. They're more likely to use what I had one 8th grader call the golden hour. He created a project all about that. And it was really special because he used to play the not so golden 3 hours. So rather than having that argument with his parents every day, he got that hour a day, conflict was gone, and he was doing time management a lot better. And then procrastination in the age of distraction. Procrastination is a huge issue for all of us. This is an amazing TED Talk on procrastination that is so fun. And the kids absolutely love it. I showed it with my 7th graders, and they still talk about the panic monster and the instant gratification monkey. So if you've got 15 minutes with your kiddos and you're talking about goal setting, this is a really, really fun one to show. I can't wait to show it to them next week. And we do this project to kind of culminate that technology unit in 8th grade, where they're analyzing the influence of technology by, interestingly enough, using technology. The instructions for the project are here, but they pick the topic that resonates with them the most and design an infographic to access, oh, I didn't type that right, to access information, analyze the influence, and then advocate. So you can see here, there's some on how gaming helps your health. Obviously, he's a gamer and wanted to show his parents why it was good. Your addiction to your phone, cyberbullying, tech distractions, digital footprint. So that was just from one class, and there's 5 different topics. So rather than me saying we're going to focus specifically on cyberbullying, the kids are focusing on the issues that impact them the most. And that's a very powerful thing when it comes to any class, but especially in health. And don't forget to share. So tap into your network for ideas and inspiration, or team up with other teachers on campus for cross-curricular learning. Sharing is caring, and it's so amazing that we're in the time of open sourcing, and we don't have to use textbooks or spend all that money because there's somebody just an email away who probably has a project that's worked, or can point you into the direction of a great nonprofit that's creating resources for us to use. So when you find that stuff, share, and that's why I love Twitter so much. I'm not going to go through these specifically right now, because what I'd like to do is come back over here and stop the screen share for a second. See if you guys can There we are. And go into the Tozzle and see if there's any particular topics that you would like to have some resources for. Because I would be more than happy to kind of add some more stuff in there or answer any specific questions. I'm digging through the Tozzle right now to see. All right, I'll just go through some of these. Oh, I like this, hygiene goals. I always have such a hard time figuring out how to teach hygiene. We go through so many different variations of it. Hygiene detectives, where the kids present. They did hygiene songs. I still can't get the Ghostbusters song out of my head that the 6th graders came up with, but hygiene's a great one. If you've got resources for that, please share. On this second to last page, what I have here is a link to grab and go health project ideas. This was when I was still putting everything, we were still putting everything for teachers on the Main Choices site. Now it's a lot on the idea book, like this one. So this is gonna be more specific and longer, and it's gonna have like the resources, the handouts that you need, the article link for the magazine for the kids. If you don't have a subscription to Choices, you can still access the articles through their site. So if you look at, here's the one on sleep, which again, the sleep hygiene issue is huge right now. There's an article here from Choices, and then you could do the sleep advocacy Instagram project. It's a very quick project to do, and this goes through step by step. So the journal topic, and then the research. I have the kids research different benefits of sleep, and then go on Canva to create their projects. So this one here, on this page, there are 12 different grab and go project ideas. So the energy bar project is one that we started doing last year, the year before, with the 8th graders. It's a long project. We're a project-based learning school, so we have time to really dig in. But this is broken down lesson by lesson, and there's 2 parts to it. So this is where we go to the grocery store, and then you'll see the research questions there, taste testing the bars, analyzing the energy bars. Are they really as healthy as they say they are? And then looking at part 2 on creating our own bars and marketing them to the school.
Hey, Amy, there's a couple questions on the Tozzle.
Awesome.
About how you make these things exciting.
Oh, I thought I was on Screenshare when I was just talking for the last little bit there, and it was just me. Sorry, guys. I was like opening windows for you. Sorry, Jorge, go ahead.
They were just asking about how you make it exciting for the kids and how you get them engaged in the
That's a great question. So I'll go back to Screenshare now and show you that energy bar project I was just telling you about, because that's a good example of that. So for this one, part 1 of that, so let me just show you the link here. Here's the 12 grab and go health project ideas, and the link to that is right here on the second to last slide. So in this one, here's all the different projects that I've written up for Choices. There's a lot newer ones now too, but those are all on Idea Book, so you can find those on the Idea Book link. But this one, for example, the energy bar project, this is for teaching the 8th grade nutrition unit. So this is where we're really looking at the influence of food marketing and big food. This is a great unit because it kind of, the kids really click on with that cognitive dissonance about, wait, what is the food industry doing to us? So depending on time, and again, we've got a lot of time for this unit with our kids. Here are a couple of our girls doing a energy bar analysis. So we watch Fed Up, either we watch clips of it or the whole film, depending on time. Then we go to the grocery store and we do here's the, a lot of times I'll link to my website. This is my blog here, and I'll link there, and then you'll find the student handouts as well, if they're not directly embedded into the Choices site. So for this one, they get really excited. We go to the grocery store and they analyze the placement of the food and where it's at. And then we do a taste test of the energy bar. So we buy, and it doesn't cost too much. So the money that we used to spend on textbooks and on really expensive DVDs, like the budget, we now use on disposable things like food products to get the kids to make energy bars. And you don't even need a kitchen to do those because we do a lot of non-bake ones. We're lucky that we have a kitchen here that we can use, but even if you don't, we bring in a Zumba instructor. So we use our money to do things like that, to buy the different energy bars that claim to be healthy. And we get a bunch of different ones and they taste test them and pick their favorites. And then they actually read the ingredient list and see which ones they liked. And if they are as healthy as they claim, that gets them really excited. And then digging in, these are the questions that they go through to analyze them. Then we actually get cooking or not cooking, depending on what kind of bar they make. And so this is where they make the bars. So they go on a recipe hunt. These are some class discussion questions. As a class, we agreed upon the parameters. It has to have pronounceable ingredients that we can easily find. No nuts or nut products because we're a nut-free school. Can be prepared within 45 minutes and it looks tasty. So then we decided on a few recipes. This turned into a competition last semester where each group had a different recipe, and then we had a vote. Then we had a taste test, and we actually got Sodexo, our cafeteria provider, to package and produce the winner. Because we sold it to them like, look, the kids voted. They like this healthy snack, and it's really easy to make. There's only 5 ingredients, and you can sell it, and everyone's a winner. So that worked for us. We got a guest speaker in to talk about, one of our parents is an advertising exec, so he came in to show them a presentation about some of the tricks of the trade. And then they created their own marketing campaign. So they made energy bar boxes, and then they made commercials, which turned out really funny. I'm gonna pull away real quick because I've got some boxes I can show you guys from last semester that were really good. So this is one here. They created the box, and they've got to come up with the slogan as well. Healthy, tasty, natural. This one here was really fun. Grain drop top. Eat one of these and you can't stop. So their commercials were a lot of fun as well. So there's lots of different ways to get the kids excited. A short video can work. A news story can work. And just getting them up, moving outside of the classroom, having an authentic audience as well, making sure that their projects are going somewhere after they're done. They're not just living here in the classroom. Also gets them really motivated.
Okay, so I think we have time for one more question. So Carrie asks, how do you teach about LGBTQ issues, and how do you approach it?
That's a great question. I'm really lucky to be at an international school, and we use an inclusive curriculum. So we use a lot of the resources. We align with California, but also we use Ontario's Health PE curriculum, which even if you're in the States, I highly recommend looking at it because it's very up to date. And if you're at a state which allows you to talk about LGBTQ issues, that can be a useful tool. On my site, let me go to Screenshare real quick, Carrie, so you can see this. I share. On my site, I have a whole section for teachers with resources. And so on here specifically, articles, you'll see resources for an LGBT-friendly health class. What I've done is I've pulled together here. I wrote this for Scholastic, but unfortunately, because the state issues state to state, they weren't able to put it on the site. So I put it here for everyone. And this is a bunch of the different ways that I teach it. This is a great little PSA to show the kids, and some different activities that you can use. So hopefully this will help, Carrie. The kids are so much more, certainly, and it depends on where you're at, obviously, but my students are pretty good about being very open-minded with that. So a lot of times they'll guide the discussion and kind of stop negative language before they hear it, but there's some resources that can help you kind of know where to go.
All right, thank you. Amy, would you mind muting your screen for this?
Not.
Okay, cool, because I think that will help with the echo that we've been hearing. And my voice isn't working too well, so that might help twofold there. Okay, so I just wanted to thank you for presenting and thank all the participants for having such a lively discussion on the Toggle. It was really great. We were talking about all kinds of cool stuff. So definitely check out the resources, a ton of resources in this presentation. So again, thank you for all that. And I did want to remind everybody to check out physpedagogy.com where you can find the feedback survey and fill that out. And you can also get your professional development certificate at physpedagogy.com. So make sure you do that at the end of the Phys Ed Summit. So once again, thank you, Amy. I'm gonna give it back to you to give any last final thoughts.
Thank you. I'm so happy to have had this opportunity to present again, and I'm excited to go through the TOZL and to keep this conversation going on Twitter and wherever else we all connect. And I just feel free to contact me. I'm going to put this back up on the screen here. If you ever have any questions or need resources, because I love to share again and am available through email or on Twitter as well. So thank you again, and let's keep the conversation going.